Welcome to the AnimeCons TV feedback episode for August 2014. This is our monthly look into our mailbag to answer questions you may have or get feedback from you, our audience. And we've got a lot of feedback this month, so let's get right into it. We've got an email from Don, who writes, "Hello AnimeCons. As you are probably aware by now, there is a growing concern for cosplayer safety at conventions lately. Even non-cosplayers are beginning to feel unsafe, as well as parents of the younger con-goers. I know cons are campaigning cosplay does not equal consent, and I think that's great, but I was wondering if you have any safety tips or precautions for the cosplayers out there who may be worried for their safety." My first tip would be to, if you're worried for your safety, approach the convention security and let them know if you think anybody is suspicious or they're doing something wrong. Keep convention security informed. If you see something, say something. Let them know. If you complain after the convention, there's really nothing they can do about it. So let them know at the convention, and hopefully they can address it there. And just watch out for yourself. I mean, a lot of conventions are the size of a small city. So if you're going into a strange new city, you'd want to be aware of your surroundings. And conventions aren't always 100% safe. So just, be aware of your surroundings and watch out for anything that may not be great. And yeah, if somebody does something wrong, definitely get a description of them, pay attention to what they're wearing. If you can see a badge, get their name off the badge and report it to security so they can address it. Next email comes from James, also known as the Dark Kiba. He writes, "Hello to all again at Otaku HQ. Sadly, I'm not reporting on a con this time, but instead I recently viewed your back episode 311, where Sketch and Doug talked about the pros and cons of VIP, and I wanted to ask if you all think that more cons should have VIP. I personally think that VIP is good and the perks that come with them. I also think that more cons should have VIP, like Nine Desk Con. I even looked through the list of different conventions on your website, and I was surprised to see that not many conventions have VIP. In fact, there were fewer conventions that did have VIP than I expected. Even conventions like MomoCon and SakuraCon didn't have VIP, even though they're both well known. I have yet to go to a convention with VIP, but I would like to attend KatsuCon with a VIP badge, because I liked the list of perks that come with it, especially concierge service. Before ending, I would also like to ask if you guys could put together a special section on your website that lists all the conventions with VIP and all the perks and prices that go with them. This way, any congoer can look up this and determine if they would like to attend that particular con with a VIP badge, and this method would be both helpful and easy. Thank you all, and until next time, sincerely, James, the Dark Kiba. P.S. When Doug reported on Anime Expo, he mentioned Premier Fan Badge. Is that their VIP version of Anime Expo? Because I'm not sure. Again, thanks later. I think their Premier Fan is some version of VIP. I'm not sure of the details of what comes with that, but yeah, we're not going to list VIP badges on AnimeCons.com because there's so many conventions now and they change so rapidly and they may sell out, and there's so many factors that it's hard for us to keep track of all that. And so we don't even list kid prices. We just list the standard adult rate. If there's a VIP, or if there's a group discount, or if there's kid rates, and there's so many other things, we can't keep track of all that. So we list the standard adult rate. As for conventions with VIP, I'm actually not a fan of VIP badges. I think it's like, when you walk onto a plane, I think I've mentioned this before, when you walk onto a plane and you see the people sitting in first class and they're all smug, I hate those people. And yeah, they paid more and they get this special treatment, but I like to know that I'm at the convention and I get the same treatment as everybody else. And I think the VIP, it kind of creates an elite crowd, which we don't really need in the convention scene. Yeah, it's cool to get seating up front and any other special perks, but at the end of the day, we're all fans, and no fan is better than another fan, and I don't think the VIP badges help promote that. It's kind of an elitist thing, and I really don't like it. So that's my opinion. I know there's other people out there that love VIP badges, and they've got the money to spend on them, and they'll gladly go and probably spend hundreds of dollars on autographs for Patrick Stewart and William Shatner and all the other big name actors. But I just like going to a con and having a good time. And if that means that I can't because people with the VIP badges, they're taking all the good seats, or they're going to all these events that I can't get to, well, then that just kind of takes some of the fun out of it. So that's my thought on VIP. We also have another, let me grab this. We got another message here. This is from Greg Skinner in response to my Nerdtacular report. He writes, "You're 100% correct, Patrick. I've never been to other cons, a couple smaller, or I've been to other cons, a couple smaller, some ridiculously larger, but this was something special. I cannot even imagine not going back next summer for Nerdtacular 2015. Yeah, Nerdtacular was great. I definitely want to go back next year. That, like I said, one of my, it is the best convention I've ever attended. And I don't think they had VIP badges, so there you go. Everybody was just great. Now we got a lot of feedback on the Red Flags of Conventions episode that I did. Here's some of them. Mike writes, "I was a bit surprised that you didn't mention the Tour for the Cure event put on by Anime FF in Las Vegas back in 2007 that ended up being a scam. It made a decent splash at the time." Yeah, I actually forgot all about Tour for a Cure. That was not good. It was, I mean, they're trying to do it for charity, and then it ends up being complete BS. So anyway, we've also got Light Solver on YouTube who wrote, "I've been working at one of the My Little Pony conventions, Everfree Northwest, for over a year now, handling media relations. And what I've seen happen a few times at other cons, and has happened to us, is that someone has made up a story or taken something that actually happened and twisted the facts of the event to make it more dramatic. Most of the time, though, the cons will release a statement about a claim a few weeks to a month after the story, once they've been able to find out the truth. I do wish some people would do some digging first before believing what someone claims to have happened." And yeah, I mean, this reminds me of the DashCon. The ball pit, that just seemed too ridiculous. And I probably wouldn't have believed it if a lot of DashCon attendees didn't post pictures of the ball pit and video of the people collecting all the money. But yeah, a lot of times when you've got multiple attendees saying the same thing, that usually means it's probably true. If you get one person claiming something, well, you got to take that with a grain of salt. They might just be really mad and kind of overemphasizing some of the things that happened or exaggerating their story. But and it's not common for staff to say, "Oh, yeah, we messed up, we did this." But if a convention does that and says, "We did that, here's how we'll make it better," no, that's great, because I've always admired conventions that will admit their mistakes and follow that up with how they will make it better. And hopefully they address the situation quickly and don't let it stew for a while until it just blows up. The other bad thing I've seen is conventions that will just delete the feedback because it's bad and assume that makes it go away. That just makes it worse. It makes people even more angry. So if you're running a convention, the best thing to do is address the feedback quickly so it calms everybody down, says, "Yes, we're aware of this, we're going to address it," and don't just delete it, don't ignore it, but let them know that you saw them, you're acknowledging their feelings, and that you're going to make it better. Let's see, we've got another email. This is from Luke, who is apparently in the UK, and writes, "Here's some information about a failed convention which occurred in the UK. The convention in question is AMCons, standing for East Midlands Convention, a convention occurring at the Albert Hall Conference Centre, Nottingham, on March 16th, 2014. The convention had been promoted for a long time, especially on Facebook, in several local online news sources and blogs, and in popular magazines such as SFX. The convention boasted having an entire main cast for Red Dwarf, as well as many actors from Doctor Who and Game of Thrones. This convention is regarded by many in the local area and the entire country as one of the most poorly organized UK cons ever. In order to keep track of events, I'll have to write them down as a list." Now there's 2 pages here, so I'll go over some of the highlights. Prior to the convention, the management had boasted that they had sold out of tickets and were making another 1,000 available for purchase at the local tourist info center. When the sold-out fast-track tickets holders arrived, they ended up queuing for a couple of hours after the con was supposed to begin due to guests arriving late. Due to the fast-track holders having to wait, the queue built up with the standard ticket holders behind them. As people were joining the prepaid ticket queue, people who were buying tickets at the door were being let in straight away. Rapidly, prepaid ticket queues stretched around the conference center and back on itself, as did the queue for buying tickets at the door. Many people in the queues had pre-booked photo shoots with the guests. AnimeCon staff had to bring these attendees to the front of the queue to attend their photo shoots, although many missed these shoots. The lines eventually started to move, and eventually my group entered the convention after 3 hours of queuing. Throughout the duration of the queuing, the staff only made a couple of appearances. The police showed up a couple of times to try and quell the queues, but they had not been informed the event was taking place, so were unprepared to deal with this large number of attendees. The convention was already quite packed, but eventually the staff began to implement a one-on-one policy and one-in, one-out policy, and stated that they would be issuing refunds to those who had already bought tickets, for which you would have to join another queue, which is as long as the one to gain entry to the con. Eventually they had to stop issuing refunds when they ran out of cash, promising refunds if they contacted them via the internet. At one point it was announced that attendees would only be allowed to remain in the convention for only half an hour, so as to let many people in as possible. The entry queues did shorten though, and this was due to many people leaving the queues after having missed the Red Dwarf panel, which was the highlight of the con for most people. As for the convention itself, the guests were crammed into the center around the walls of a tiny room, with a few rooms on the outside for stores and photos. The space in the walkways was barely more than a meter or so. Other attractions such as a prop Daleks and a TARDIS were just stuffed out of sight in the foyer. By near to the end of the con, when the cosplay competition took place, the con was almost deserted, with people having given up. When it was over, the local news said the convention is a success, making no mention of the thousands of people left out. It was made apparent after the con that the venue had capacity for 700 people, but they had sold around 4,000 to 5,000 tickets for the event. In short, this photo. I was there when the strength of men failed. However, the queuing was made bearable by the presence of various cosplay groups entertaining the queuing patrons. The staff, while stressed out and overworked, were helpful as they could be, and the guests were friendly and approachable, making as good of a situation as possible. The convention is occurring again next year, this time with a much larger venue, a stadium, and big-name guests, such as the 80s doctors from Doctor Who. Many apologies for the waffling, and many regards, Luke. Well, that's good that you eventually made it inside, but I've said it before that registration is the most important part of a convention. Everybody goes through registration. I mean, your cosplay contests and masquerade, not everybody goes to that. Your guest panels, not everybody goes to each of those. Everybody goes through registration. So if there's one aspect of the convention you have to make sure is running to the best of its efficiency, it's registration. And that means know the size of your venue and don't allow in more people than you have space for, and make sure that your system is going to run smoothly. If you have a system that requires somebody to do something that takes 5 seconds longer, that means 5 seconds times 1,000 people, 5,000 seconds. I mean, do the math. That's going to delay everybody. So you want a very fast registration system, and if that means for smaller conventions, this probably doesn't apply, but if you've got a convention with 5,000 people, well, in this one 1,000, but that was the size of their venue, I guess, but make sure you have enough stations, and if you have a convention with 5,000 people, definitely consider outsourcing. I mean, there's stories of Anime Boston in 2008 with lines for 8 hours, and the next year, longest line, 20 minutes. After registration opened, boom. They fixed it, and they hired outside registration. And so if you're at a convention, and year after year, they have lines of 3 hours or more, that's not good. And the convention needs to address that. I know of some conventions here in California where year after year, people wait in line for half the day. And that's not how you run a convention. And they need to fix that. And if they want to contact me, I would gladly tell them what they need to do to fix that. But they don't seem to care. So all I can say is stop going to those conventions and find a new one, because there's no excuse to wait in line half the day to get in, especially if there's other conventions nearby. And here in California, there's a ton. On the East Coast, there's a ton. Don't wait in a 5-hour line. It's ridiculous. I mean, 1 year, oh, you can forgive them. If they're doing that year after year, no. Just telling you right now, stop going to those conventions. Don't support them. And I'm mad at those conventions. That's right. You're going to hear from me. Anyway, next comment comes from ESW01407, who writes, "What's concerning is I know of several long-term legitimate conventions with similar issues, including really horrible websites and no serious grasp of social media. I attend one every year that I wish would get its external communication together. The con of a college campus a little further away is doing a significantly better job at this point. I also know of several conventions that can't do online payments, so it's pay by check or pay on site, and I wish at least that one would finally do so because it caused issues this year due to the lack of communication." Yeah, for social media, conventions should have somebody on staff dedicated to social media. Update Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Google+, and definitely those four. Make sure the website is updated. If you have a webmaster, make sure that the social media person can also post, not just, oh, I sent it to the webmaster, we're waiting for him to do something. You need multiple people to be able to post. As for the pay online, if you're a small con, check out Eventbrite. A lot of people use that, and it allows online payments. It can save you money. They do charge fees, but if you can have online registration, you're going to get more people registering in advance, and that helps you estimate your attendance numbers. So it's good. Use it. Plasma Warrior writes, "You can never forget about the one convention that continues to go on but totally sucks. Houston's Anime Matsuri. I can give you a ton of details from the last time I was there, but I have to admit I haven't gone there in years. The reason, last time I went, it was one of the worst conventions ever, 2011. The events were right after the Japanese tsunami, so no one bothered to make it a point to bring other people together to rally around that. Making matters worse, the convention's hotel was the same one that made OniCon 2005 a disaster also. On top of that, it was during the Houston Rodeo. Worse, the group that started it, Planet Zero, closed down in 2012 or so the staff only seemed to keep this going for whatever reason. They do have great musical guests, I'll give them that much. I'm actually not going to comment on Anime Matsuri because they invited me as a guest one year and then never booked airline tickets or hotel or anything for me, so I actually didn't go. And I'd rather not talk about it. Action Rand Schaefer says, in fairness, they have invited me back, but I haven't gone because it's usually against Anime Boston and I'm not too keen on going. Anyway, Action Rand Schaefer writes, "I've been going to a con since 2008 and I'm an anime and furry. Notable failures for me and red flags is 18 plus MUCON, Portland, Oregon, or 21 plus Foxmas Rochester Holiday Inn, New York conventions. 18 plus seems to say be wild and rude as you want to be. In my opinion, a bad omen. I am not keen on adult events. For MUCON, the age restriction cut into attendees and volunteers. They do not have enough volunteers to prevent the ghosting problem. Ooh. For Foxmas, it was supposed to be a mini FurCon with a dedicated adult tone. Foxmas was advertised as 18 plus to get in, 21 plus to drink, allowing scritching, hugging, lap sitting, kissing, and groping between consenting adults. This is a publicity nightmare for the furry fandom in the making. Something awful broke the story, and the Holiday Inn found out, being misled about the adult theme, they canceled Foxmas room block and space." Wow. Now, not all 18 plus or 21 plus cons are bad. Now I'm biased because I was one of the founders of Providence Anime Conference. That convention was amazing. Everybody there loved it. I mean, the feedback panel, we had to practically drag any bad feedback out of people. The number one complaint was there were no people there. It wasn't advertised as well as it could have been, and we just didn't have enough people there. That was the issue, and that's why we didn't have it again the following year. But everybody there had an amazing time. The panels were packed, and everybody loved all the events, and it was 21 plus. And it was not just let's get drunk event. It was, you can sit down and have an adult conversation about anime with your peers. And the panels weren't, let's look at hentai. It was, actual academic discussions. The reason it was 21 plus was no kids. So you didn't have the screaming kids running through the halls doing all the memes of Marco Polo and you lost the game and all that crap. It was grown-ups. Now there's another convention out there, Project something project, but not Chibi Project, but starts with an S. I'll put it down here because I can't remember. But they do I think an 18 plus or is it 21 plus con that I've heard good things about. And then there are the adult themed ones. You've got Nauticon or YaoiCon, YuriCon, those sorts of things, 18 plus, and those are adult themes. But they let you know that before you go, so you know what you're getting into. And it seems like if they're advertising that on their website, well, they're letting people know what they're getting into. And if that's the kind of con they want to run, that's good, but they probably should have let the hotel know. And finally, Flea on Twitter writes, there was a furry con in Boston this weekend that opened to the public halfway through Saturday, probably because of low attendance. If you look at my photos on Twitter from this weekend, you can see that there were less than 50 people there. They're claiming 200. Wow. Yeah, if you're at a convention in a major city like Boston and you only have 200 people, that's kind of disappointing, I'd say. And open to the public halfway through, I can't imagine that got them many more people, but they probably figured at this point, well, we've made all the money we're going to make, let's just open it up and at least fill the seats. And that's kind of what Providence Anime Conference did. When we realized that we weren't going to attract many more people, we just didn't want it to look like a ghost town, so we told the Anime Boston staff, hey, come on down and come to the convention. And so at least there were people there enjoying themselves, and there was some activity, and it wasn't, oh, it's empty. And so that helped. And but anyway, that's this month's feedback. Now let's take a look at all the upcoming anime conventions through Halloween. Coming up on AnimeCons TV, next week Doug reports from Otakon 2014. Then we take a week off for Labor Day weekend and Dragon Con, but we'll be back on September 8th. And Shiva's doing another cosplay help episode on interfacing. And after that, Doug's back and he's got an interview from Otakon with voice actor Tony Oliver. And you can help build our subscriber numbers. Subscribe on iTunes at itunes.animecons.tv. and YouTube at youtube.com/AnimeConsPodcast, or just watch us on AnimeCons.tv. And you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and Tumblr. And look forward to see you next week. But before I go, Shiva challenged me to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. So I'm going to do that. And before I take my microphone off, I want to challenge Mike Toole from Anime News Network, Victor Lee, the chair of Anime Boston, and Greg Ayers. So, here we go. I'll take this.